Welcome to the GEM series, powered by Rocket Level. On this podcast, we empower entrepreneurs to succeed by setting big goals, executing like a pro, and having a fearless mindset. The GEM series is all about investing in yourself. We're here to share the path to getting what you want out of life by sharing the stories of entrepreneurs who have done this themselves, providing thorough research from our team on what careers and habits are yielding the best results, and discussing the mindset it takes to overcome the obstacles that all future entrepreneurs will face. Investing in yourself starts with putting in the work every single day, and this podcast is here to help you do exactly that. My name is Blake Chapman. I'm the Vice President of the Ambassador Program here at Rocket Level, and I am thrilled to be your host for the GEM series.
Welcome to the GEM series, everybody. I have a very special guest today. We got Brenden from MasterTalk. Brenden, how are you doing today?
Very good, Blake. How are you?
Hey, I am doing wonderfully. I, just have been really excited to get to talk to you. So for anybody that isn't familiar, Brenden is the founder of MasterTalk. He coaches ambitious executives and entrepreneurs to become top 1% communicators in their industry. And, I've been watching some of the YouTube videos on the channel called MasterTalk, and they are just incredible. With the goal of providing some free access to communication tools for everybody in the world. Brenden, I'd love for you to take a moment to tell the audience a little bit more about yourself, because obviously me reading a short bio can't encapsulate everything that you do. So could you just share a little bit more about that?
For sure, Blake. And you got most of it, honestly. I would say the only piece is how this all came about, which was in college. I went to business school, Blake, and I did these things called case competitions. Think of it like professional sports, but for nerds. So while other guys my age are playing rugby or soccer or baseball, I wasn't really one of those guys. I did presentations competitively, and that's how I learned how to speak. But then what happened was, as I got older, I started coaching a lot of the kids in college on how to communicate too, because we needed someone to help them win competitions. And I accidentally developed a skill on coaching other people on how to communicate ideas. So I started MasterTalk, the YouTube channel, because I realized that everything I was teaching them wasn't available for free. So I started making videos, and then a few years later it turned to something I never thought it would, to be honest.
That's absolutely incredible. A couple of things that I really liked about that. One, it seems like you have a natural drive to want to help people. Let's pause there for a second. What made you want to help out some of the younger kids, to help level their game up too?
Yeah, for sure, Blake. I think it's more just a philosophy that I have in life. I mean, life is short. We're all going to die anyways. So we might as well figure out what's worth standing for. And in my earlier life, I wasn't that way, maybe 10, 15 years ago. And the reason was very justified, because I was just focusing on retiring my mom, because my parents were both factory workers. And the main reason I did these case competitions wasn't to become a public speaking guru or coach or whatever. The goal was really to get a very high paying job in corporate. That was the goal. That was the focus. It wasn't to be a YouTuber to share my knowledge and save the world. Like, I was really focused on saving myself and my family. And I feel a lot of us should start that way. But when you fill up your own cup, you realize that the game that you're playing has a finite end. Because it doesn't take a lot of money to really secure your family. Like, if you live below your means, you're smart with your money, if you're making 70, 80 grand a year and you don't have kids, you don't have a mortgage, like, things get sorted out really quickly. So then I started to ask myself the bigger questions of life. Well, then what's the point of life? Like, do I just work at a job for 40 years? And I realized that this was a gift I had, and I feel I'm the only person in the world who can actually help the world with this. So I went for it.
That's really incredible. And, I think a lot of people are sharing that sentiment right now more than ever. They're really digging deep to find what do they want out of life, and trying to make sure that they marry their skills and, find the right fit for them so that they can bring the most value and live the most, incredible life that they possibly can. So tell me a little bit about the early days though. Like, what drove you, whenever you were doing these case competitions and you wanted to go to this corporate job? Like, what was life around then, and what kind of drove you, to keep getting better and all of that? Was it always just the corporate job, or was there any kind of mindset stuff that came into that with like parents or colleagues or anything?
Yeah, for sure, Blake. For me, the goal was really centered around how do I secure myself financially. That was really the focus back then. That's why I did these competitions, because when I was 19 and I started to meet a lot of the students who had jobs where I wanted to work, because I didn't really have a network back then. One of the companies I worked at was a company called PricewaterhouseCoopers.
Mm-hmm.
It's like an accounting firm. And I thought they were a water bottling company. That's how lost I was when I started working there. I knew they were an accounting firm when I started working there, but when I first heard about it, that's what I thought it was. So that's really how lost I was. So I would start asking a lot of these interns who were 2-3 years older than me, who had landed jobs there. And I asked them, like, what did you do? Did you get good grades? Did you study really hard? And they all just looked at me in confusion. They said, no, you got to network. You got to do case competitions. And I was like, what's a case competition? They said, oh, you got to give presentation. I was like, what the hell? So I started doing these competitions. But then I developed an unhealthy obsession around them because I'm just really naturally really competitive.
Sure.
So and that's how I accidentally got super good at this. And then later on, I was able to leverage it to help other people.
Wow. That's pretty amazing. I got to be honest with you. This was doing a little bit of prep for the call and learning a little bit more about you. This was the first time I had actually heard of case competitions. And it's pretty fascinating. It looks like it could be a pretty high pressure scenario. Do you think you learned anything from being under those high pressure scenarios? And how do you bring that into what you're doing now, you think?
Oh, 1000%. I credit almost all of my success to that case competition. And it was very high pressure. Just to give you a context, that's why I'm sure the next question you're probably thinking is like, why the hell would anyone volunteer to do these things? Like, to give you an idea, Blake, there's like 8,000 students, let's say, in my business faculty, but only 80 people were in the case competition program. So 1% of the entire faculty. So it's 1 in 100 students are in this program. So it's a very tiny group of individuals. So how does this work? A business gives us a problem, let's say Walmart or Nike, and students have 3 hours to read a 20-page case with no internet access, develop a strategy, a solution, make slides, make financial statements, do an analysis, find the solution, and present all of it at the end of the 3 hours. But at the end of the 3 hours, there's no practice time. You go straight to the judges right after, who are generally executives of the company.
Wow.
And the reason these things exist, Blake, because it's a very small community, only people who have done business school might even know what they are, is because it's a recruiting tool for the best companies in the world. So think Amazon will spend $50,000 sponsoring one of these cases, and their executives sit on that board of judges and go, I want that kid, I want that kid, I want that kid. And they start giving them job offers and interviews before anyone else does.
Wow. So it's like a straight pipeline to getting the corporate job that you want, essentially, trying to find the best of the best.
You got it. That's why most people who end up doing these competitions end up getting 3 or more job offers out of university. And I was no exception for sure.
So fast forwarding, I guess, past case competitions a little bit, what did it look like once because I mean, you did land that corporate job, right? You did get that goal.
Yeah. So what happened after, Blake? And to be honest, I loved my job. I was an IBM consultant in tech for 2.5 years before I went full time on MasterTalk. But what happened was a few things. One, I just started making videos in my mom's basement. I started MasterTalk because I needed something interesting to do outside of work. Yeah. Not to say work was bad, but it wasn't that same competitive thrill that I was used to in competitions. Because when you do these case competitions, it's kind of like when a professional athlete retires from their sport.
Sure.
Right? Think of like an NBA player who's like done with basketball. Well, one day there's 10,000 people screaming your name, but then the next day you're just like, nobody cares. And so this was the same thing, except 10,000 people is probably more like 100 or less than 100 in my case, where I kind of just said, okay, how do I recreate that competitive environment? And I realized there was no replacement. So I decided to create my own game through MasterTalk because I found a void in the marketplace. So I was just making these videos for fun. I was finally making money for the first time in my life. So I retired my mom, paid off all of her family debt.
That is
and
amazing.
We were finally, quote unquote, wealthy. Thank you. Wealthy in my life. So I just started saving a bunch of the money. It's like I was buying a BMW with it, like my friends were. I was just saving and stacking. And I just said, okay, what's the bigger game here? And then I met my business partner 9 months into making YouTube videos. And he's the one who advised me on how to turn this into a business, which ended up being coaching technology executives for money. And they're willing to pay thousands of dollars to have access to me. So I just shifted, I pivoted, and I said, because I think what shifted, Blake, was before I was so focused on money. Because when you're poor, it's normal. If you don't have a lot of money, that's all your focus. You have a scarcity mindset.
Sure.
But later in life, you realize, and some people learn it at 50 years old instead of 26, like I have, is time is actually way more valuable than money. Because even if you're a billionaire, you can't buy your time back. So I asked myself a more valuable question, which is, how do I want to spend my time? And the answer just became obvious at that point, that I had to quit my day job and do MasterTalk full time.
That's pretty empowering to be able to ask yourself that question and execute on it. I feel like there's a lot of people that are in a similar boat, but for some reason we just drag it out. What kind of prep work did it take? So I guess you kind of detailed some of that. So you saved up money. You got advice from people around you. Yeah. I mean, tell me a little bit more. What were kind of the fears that went into making that kind of shift, or, what was it like speaking with your family? Anything like that came up?
Oh yeah, like a ton of those. I mean, let's laundry list all of it. So the first one was, it was very risky for me to quit my day job. It's been 13 months that I've been full time now. Now it's not a bad decision.
Congratulations.
We're fine. Yeah, thank you, man. But I side hustled MasterTalk for 2.5 years at IBM before I quit. So that's important to mention. I find a lot of entrepreneurship these days in media. It's like, just jump and burn all the boats. I was like, yeah, well, you got to feed that family to feed. You don't want to burn nothing, or else the whole house is going to burn with it. So I wouldn't recommend that.
Absolutely.
I would say the first thing is, I'm the most risk averse person you'll ever have on your show, in the sense that I did a few things before I quit corporate. One, I already had a product that was making money. So my coaching business was already doing well. I wasn't making $1 million a year, but I had replaced 20-30% of my income. Yeah. And I was doing MasterTalk 20-30 hours a week, Blake, while I was doing IBM, which was 60-70 hours a week. Right? So I'd already done a good job there. The second piece is, I was willing to do my side hustle part-time. A lot of people, they want to go full-time and they're not willing to work on the business while they're have a day job, and those people just won't win in entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
And then the third piece was, I had a 9-month emergency fund. Like, I took very little risk. Once again, I was the only breadwinner in the family. So I spent 2.5 years just keep producing YouTube videos. I took 25% of my personal salary that I was making at IBM, funded my best friend so he could professionalize my videos. That's why my videos look all cool now. And that's how I was able to quit. So yeah, I took very little risk. But I will be honest when I say, Blake, I got lucky in the sense that my gift, my talent, you could charge a lot of money for it. Whereas my best friend's a painter, and he made it, but it took him a lot longer.
That would be quite a grind. I mean, I love that you have some real hard truths in there. One is that, I mean, gosh, if you are in a position where you want to try something else, I mean, it is a big risk to just assume that you're working, even if you're working 40 hours a week, I mean, that's nothing. Like, you're probably not, I mean, I hate to put it out there. I want to promote work-life balance, of course, but if you're really trying to become the best at something, you're not just putting in 40 hours a week at what you're doing. So to think that you could just switch and just randomly start running your own business, it's just unrealistic. Even you kind of talked about the same way that athletes are, they get addicted to almost like the high of thriving at the top of their game and want to find something new later on, and how you were doing that with your videos. And I think that almost kind of can get tied back to the pivot, just in the sense that, if an athlete were to switch into another sport, we've seen how that went with Michael Jordan, and he didn't do the prep work. He didn't remove the risk. So I actually love that, because there's too many people out here saying, just rip the Band-Aid off and do it. And don't get me wrong, I think you should go for it. But at the same time, be real, right? I mean, yeah, it sounds like that's something that you did a good job of with yourself.
Yeah, man, I'm glad you noticed that as well. And I definitely agree with the point on MJ, though he was already pretty successful.
It didn't really matter, but
yeah, it didn't really matter in his case. But I think but your point is still valid, by the way, Blake. But I would say the key here, I would say that the overarching principle, because I hate coming on shows and just saying this is what you should do. Let me go through some principles that literally any human being can do, but they just don't, regardless of their situation. Even if they're a single mother with 7 kids, and obviously my heart goes out to those types of individuals.
Sure.
But the principles I'm going to share right now, Blake, they apply to everybody.
Yeah.
The first one is people don't make their purpose their priority. That's just the most important thing. You know, a lot of people make their lifestyle their priority, especially when the money that I was making at IBM, I could have easily bought all the nice shiny things that I wanted. I mean, not that I wanted, excuse me, that I could have bought, but I would rather have more leverage. I just wanted more capital to follow my dreams. Whereas other people, they care a lot more about the shiny objects, what other people think. I think that's one piece, is that they don't make their purpose their priority. Like me, and I'll always say this on record. If I go to zero financially, I'd work at a coffee shop to make MasterTalk work. I don't care.
Yeah.
Chances are I'd probably just be able to get another corporate job because I built the right relationship. Not that I need it anymore, but it's more of a mindset because that's how much I care. Second thing that I'll mention, I still live with my mom and my sister.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And the reason is simple, right? The answer is simple. It has nothing to do with finance. I mean, some of it has to do, but like I could live on my own. Like it's not a problem. It's just, and this is a decision we made as a family that I think most people just don't do culturally. But I guess in my culture, it's different, I guess, or Asian culture, is why pay for 3 mortgages when you can pay for 1 and just split the mortgage? Like, let's assume everyone's listening to this and his average income. Okay, let's say 50 grand a year. Okay, well, if you have 3 family members who make 50 grand a year and you're really smart with your money, your household income is 150,000. And I know exactly what people are thinking right now. They go, well, Brenden, I don't have a good relationship with my mom. I don't have a good relationship with my dad. And I go, okay, perfect. Why don't you just do this with 2 other friends? Like this is what one of my coaches tells me all the time. You can either, there's 2 types of people in the world, like you either make an excuse to do something or you make an excuse not to do something. So if I had a terrible relationship with my mom, my sister, which isn't the case, I love them to death, they're awesome, I would just do this with 2 buddies and just make 50 grand a year with 2 other people and we'd split everything. I'd still be rich. It doesn't matter. I'm not that I'm rich now, but you get what I mean. I'd be wealthy. It's just most people aren't willing to do that.
Yeah, that's some of the bare minimum sacrifices that you just have to make to do something. And I think that's probably part of what's wrong with, not to go into a big societal kind of rant here, but I mean, people are focused on all flash and no substance, and it's holding a lot of people back. And I think it's ultimately preventing a lot of people from, again, going after their purpose like you're talking about. So that just gets me so pumped up thinking about, I love having conversations like these with people like you that are going in there, or have done it and are making things happen for themselves and a lot of other people. Do you remember what your initial, maybe one of your even at a young age, what was your first sort of goal that you were like, you know what, I'm going to do this no matter what, from a very early on age? I always like to ask that.
Yeah, man, it's a great question. It's funny, Blake, how much goals evolve. Today my goal is, TBCCTEL. It's like something my coach taught me, which is like an abbreviation for what you want, which is essentially stands for the best communication coach that ever lived. That's basically my goal. Now, that's what that abbreviation stands for. But I definitely didn't start that way. My first goal probably, I think in my earliest life, was saving $50 to buy a video game. That was my first ever goal that I can remember. Like making $50 online. I used to do like surveys and stuff online, get paid like $2 or something. And I would just save up all this money. Because remember, back then, for me, $10 was 10,000,
yes.
right? So, and my parents could never afford video games and stuff like that for me. So I would have to save up. And they wouldn't let me work either because they wanted me to focus on my studies. So I found a way to make money online. I went on this website called Amazon Mechanical Turk. Long story behind that. And I was like 15 years old, pretending to be my dad.
That is so amazing.
And I made like $2 grand.
That's awesome.
Just like, $2 grand. Like making like $7 an hour, or $3 an hour. And I would buy a shit ton of video games. It was crazy.
That is so cool though. I mean, I remember having stuff like that as a kid too, where just, oh my gosh, your money went so far. And I did a little bit of the online surveying stuff too. I have a hunch that we're probably in the same kind of age range, give or take. So I'm 28. And it's so funny to remember that era of like just wanting something so simple like a video game and going after it. But I think that there's principles there, right? I mean, you see an obstacle that you otherwise could just admit defeat and just beg your parents, and then hopefully they'll give it to you. Or you could go and like hack it and make it happen for yourself,
100%. Like for me, it's all, I think Joe Rogan explains this better than me, but I'll kind of rehash what he says. It's like the idea of winning in a small way. When you start winning, you feel you could win more. Except the problem is a lot of people don't have a single W on their scoreboard, or they don't reflect on the W's in their scoreboard. So everyone should be doing this constantly. It's like, what's something that you've already accomplished in life? Don't just focus on what you want. Focus on what you've already achieved. And if you start making that list, it creates momentum and it builds up your confidence over time. So when I started the YouTube channel, I'm some kid in a basement. It's like, okay, but my goal back then wasn't 1 million subscribers or 100,000 subscribers or something crazy. I was like, can I post every week? Something that's valuable. So I did, bit by bit. Can I get better on camera? I did. When I did my first podcast, can I actually be good at this? And I was shit for like the first 100 or something. And then over time, it's like, get better at better. And then I would set harder and harder goals because I would keep smashing through goals. And now the goals are a lot bigger, but I know I can handle them now because I started winning.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Filling your tank up, you know? I mean, that's really, I like to think of that too. I also I love thinking about failures as well. You know, I've learned that in, you know, being an entrepreneur or really achieving anything in life, for me, I kind of crave, not that I want to fail, but when I do reach a failure, I found that it's really productive to look at it as reaching your threshold and then learning that you have to train to be able to execute it better next time. Tell me a little bit, what were some of have you ever experienced like a failure where you're like, oh my gosh, I'm really going to have to pull back from this, or anything that you know, going through this process? Because there's just so many things to take into consideration when you're getting going on something like this.
No, I've never failed before.
I was like, I would honestly be like, that's a flex if you say that. Whatever, go for it. Never fail. No.
Dude, I don't know. I don't know a single, unless like you've done nothing with your life. Then
you're not pushing yourself. Then you're not pushing yourself. You know.
Yeah, you're just not. Yes, a couple of things I'll sound failure, but let me start with the biggest one. Luckily, I haven't made big, stupid mistakes in my life, mostly because I just take the advice of people that are older than me, because they're trying to tell me something like, hey, don't get married early, don't have kids early. Right, I listened to that, right? So I haven't made those mistakes. So, but yes, absolutely. So with MasterTalk, I would say one of the brilliant ideas I had, I'm being sarcastic here for those who are listening, haven't caught on so far, is I said to myself, if I emailed all the university professors in Canada or college professors, and I shared them my YouTube videos, it would create unlimited distribution. Because they would watch my videos and go, this is good, and then share it with the students forever. That sounds good on paper. Oh, Brenden, you're such a smart guy. Sounds great on paper. 50,000 emails later, and I'm not joking with the number. 50,000 emails later, Blake, I realized really quickly that university professors do not like me. They don't like kids. So I got so many rude emails, like disgusting emails from these professors going, you suck. First of all, you don't call me by my first name.
Wow.
All this like criticizing my YouTube video. Like it was horrible. But the mistake was mine. And I'll tell you why. Because I was a stubborn guy. Stubborn. Right? Because I should have stopped after 500. Why did I keep sending 500 emails every day for 3 months during the summer? That's literally what I did. That's why it's 50,500 emails a day for 100 days. I should have stopped. And if I had known, as an example, Blake, that podcast guesting, what we're doing right now, is actually a thing, I would be way more successful because I would have emailed 50,000 podcast hosts and I would have been on like 5,000 podcasts.
You know, it's funny. That kind of reminds me of a scenario that I've been thinking about recently where, you know, just essentially, I just realized you got to have a plan A, but then behind that plan A, you got to have a plan B and a plan C. You know what I mean? And I think that's where a lot of what I would call failures have come from, is only putting all my eggs into one basket and like being so passionate about something, because I think that that's a risk of having the personality type of like being go and determined. And I'm pretty stubborn myself, you know. So I think I think it's pretty cool though, seeing that you push through and like you did what you said you were gonna do. You're like, I'm gonna make this happen. Like regardless of the outcome, like you learned, and then you also, I'm sure that from that, it's weird. I'm sure you gain some other skills and things like that along the way.
Absolutely, Blake. You know what I always like to say to build on your point is you got to marry the vision, not the tactic behind the vision, right? So marry the why, not the how. So what that means is obviously your why won't be clear at the beginning. So when I started Master, I had no idea I wanted to be the best communication. I was just making videos for fun. But now that my why is solid, now I'm flexible on the how. So I'm going to try different strategies, like a multiple lead bullets to see what works. Which brings me to the most important point about failure, Blake, that I'd love to share. And the most important piece is that the relationship that we have with failure when we're successful people is very different than the relationship with failure that unsuccessful people have with failure. What do I mean by this? Let's say we take sales as an example. So an unsuccessful person might try to do 5 calls, 6 strategy calls. Let's say none of them get sold. They go, oh my God, life is over. I got to try something different. Whereas the successful person, let's say, does 10 calls and one of them sell. Whatever the price is. Let's say it's $1,000. Okay. And they go, wow, 1 out of 10. So for the successful person, they go, okay, so if I do 100, that's 10 sales. If I do 1,000, that's 100 sales. And if I do 10,000, that's 1,000 sales. 1,000 sales times $1,000, $1 million. Okay, let me just ring 10,000 people. Right? So it's a different relationship with failure than the unsuccessful person who just gives up after 6. Right? And that's the way that I view it. So for example, YouTube, my first 1,000 subscribers, not a lot of people know this. You know, people think that the algorithm just saved me. Yeah, you look at my count now, people go, yeah, it's all Brenden's talent, whatever. I begged for my first 1,000 subscribers. I was on my knees, Blake. I went to my university students I had coached for free for 4 years, and I literally said this verbatim. Guys, I've been coaching you guys for 4 years. All of you guys got multiple 6-figure jobs on university, and I didn't ask for a penny. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to share my YouTube videos with a bunch of people, and they all obliged, and I hit 1,000 in 4 months. That's basically what happened.
That is so cool. I mean, it's just so important too. Like, I love the difference between that you mentioned about, you know, being a successful person or an unsuccessful person and kind of the mindset that goes into that. Cause I can't tell you how many people where I'm like, man, you know, I know tons of people in sales, and, you know, it is funny though, getting started. It's like, hey, even if you can't reach a cold prospect, like, you're telling me that out of all of your friends and family, there's not a handful of people that could probably help you make your quota. There's not something. And I think people neglect that side of it, you know, of just expending all their options.
100%, man. I mean, think about the show that we're on right now. I still have that mindset today, even if I don't need to be on podcasts anymore, because the priority is not the sale. The priority is if somebody reaches out to me, that means the likelihood that they already like my work, that they've seen my work, is really high, which means it makes a lot more sense for me to build relationships. Because for me, it's more about the host, not always the audience. It's like if you build the relationship with 10,000 hosts, even if they're the only person listening to this, there might be more, obviously, in your case, but let's say they're the only person, man, I would still do it because this is irreplaceable. Like, there's a very big difference between you see me on a YouTube channel, you go, oh, this guy's cool, versus, oh, Brendan's actually not a pompous guy who's in a suit. He's actually pretty real. I like this guy. I'm going to share my YouTube videos with 100 people. And that's how you actually build a following. And that's how you actually build a community around you, especially when times get tough. The only thing that never gets commoditized is brand, like Gary Vee says.
Absolutely. I could not agree with you more. So tell me a little bit about when you got your first taste of, man, this MasterTalk is popping off right now. Like, did you ever have a moment like that in particular where you're like, I think I'm really onto something with this?
To be honest, I'm still waiting on it. I'm kidding. I would say the one. Honestly, I thought MasterTalk was a really stupid idea. I mean, think about it, Blake. Let's be honest here. 22-year-old kid, mom in mother's basement with no money, with the phone, making videos on public speaking and communication.
Hey,
who's gonna watch that? Like, what? Right? Doesn't make any sense.
I'm like, I would watch it, but yeah.
There you go. So I didn't know that. Like, because we didn't know each other when I started the channel. So for me, the only thing I was going off of really was the 25 students in my programs that, not coaching pros, but like those case competitions that I knew would watch it. I never thought it would get this big. But I think the other piece around that is knowing where the success, like starting with those little beats and always keep pushing towards the goal. But the other piece is what happened 12 months into MasterTalk was I made my first executive coaching sale. That's when I realized I had legs, right? Because I never thought someone would pay me thousands of dollars for coaching back then. Even if I knew I could get the result back, I just didn't have the money mindset around that. But when somebody bought a service, like I was just on a call, I had no idea what I was doing on the sales call. They just loved my videos so much, they just bought it. I saw them in my bank account. I was like, shit, my business partner's right. If I sell like 25 more of these people, I'll replace all of my income at IBM. Yeah. And that's when it clicked for me that I could do this. I could make this work for sure.
That is so empowering to think about that moment when you realize you're like, man, I think I found my calling here, you know, at least for I'm sure you'll do all kinds of stuff in your life because people like us, they just, you know, it never stops. You're always looking for the next thing. So who knows? But for the foreseeable future, it's going to be really exciting to continue seeing MasterTalk and what you're doing, take it to the next level. And, you know, it's so cool whenever people have that moment and start seeing it. Cause you know, that's even whenever they talk about startups or anything like that, that's when people are like, you know, when the product is viable is once you see somebody do that initial purchase, right? Because you're like somebody I don't know bought this. Like, that's crazy, you know?
Absolutely, man. Like going from, especially with us, it was really quick because I went from January 2019, I started the channel in my mom's basement. And 9 months later, I made my first kind of $100 an hour when I was like charging really, really low, like for coaching. And I was like, oh, whoa, like even at that rate, if I get like 100 clients, I'll make like $10,000 a month. Like this is crazy.
Yeah.
So yes, the epiphany definitely happens for sure.
So do you have time for anything else when in this process now? Because I found some people are like, oh my gosh, I have like 100 hobbies and this is like my thing that I do nonstop. And then I have other people who I talk to and that are like, honestly, I dedicate like all of my resources back into this right now, you know?
Yeah, I think it goes back to what you said brilliantly earlier in the podcast, but I feel some people missed it. It was you kind of talked about work-life balance and how that's important. Here's my definition of work-life balance. Cause let me kind of put a stick in the coffin here. For me, the definition of balance is to create your own damn balance, right? Because I'm like super open on record. I work 12 to 14 hours a day. Easily. I'm either doing interviews, I'm either on sales calls, I'm either coaching clients. But when I'm on vacation, I go hard on that too. Mm-hmm. So like I'm going on vacation Saturday, 9 days, all my meetings are canceled. Like no one can touch me for 9 days. Right. So for me, what's work-life balance is, look, I delivered to my family. I was like, look, I'm busy all day. That's why I live with them, or else I would never call my mom. I know myself well, right? I know I'd never call her. So instead of just living somewhere else, just stay with her so it's integrated in my life, right? But when I go on vacation, I go hard on it. So the answer to your question, Blake, is figure out what balance means for you, right? So it's all about, and don't judge other people's, not you, the audience. Yeah. Right? So, and don't judge other people, because it always feels, because I'm aggressive, it's like, oh, like, is he
I'm all with it. Yeah.
Right. So it's all about doing your version of balance and not judging other people's balance as well. So for me, what does that look like? I spend 99% of my time on MasterTalk because I'm 7 years into coaching. I'm still one of the youngest coaches in the world. And I'm definitely the youngest with an established, that's the right word, a communication YouTube channel. If I just stay consistent for another 10 years and I just keep doing the right decisions, being nice to everyone, I'm going to be the best in the world at 36.
Absolutely.
So I'd rather just keep doing this. And it's going to help a lot of people.
Yeah.
My God, like I've already had the opportunity to coach so many, like even at this point in the game, I'm already helping like crazy people. Insane people. So if I just keep going like this, I could really do something that Dale Carnegie couldn't do in his life.
That is absolutely amazing to think about, getting to reach so many people. And I think, I don't know, it's like with Gary Vee. It's funny. I think I see people like make memes of Gary Vee about, you're so young. You know, I don't know if you've ever seen, but
Oh, I'm a huge fan.
I love Gary Vee. You know, I think it's so cool that you got such a jump on the ball, and showed that, you know, time is, like you said earlier, time is the most precious thing. So we really, really can't waste time if we're trying to go after what our real purpose is in life.
Yeah, man. Like a lot of people, just to build on that, you know, they always say, you know, take your time, be patient. You know what I always tell young people, Blake? I always say, don't lose your lead. Don't lose your lead. If you're highly conscientious, I don't pronounce that correctly, but if you got a high degree of conscientiousness and you're in your 20s, yeah, it's a crazy word, and you've already figured out life and your purpose, don't screw that up. You're like ahead of 99% of the. I don't know anyone who can start a YouTube. I wish I help other people, but like I don't think anyone's going to start a YouTube channel who's younger than me on communication and public speaking. So I could really create something really magical. So yeah, I ain't spending time doing anything else. I just do this.
No, that's great, man. What makes you want to, like, what gives you that drive to want to be, not just being like, oh, I want to continue growing, but I literally want to be the best in the world. You know, where does that come from, you think? Yeah,
for sure. I mean, part of it was probably my hatred towards my dad. I mean, I lived in a very dysfunctional household. That's one of it. So I always wanted to prove him wrong. But, you know, later in life when I healed from that, I think for me, everyone in life is motivated by different things, Blake. Like some people, you know, they like, you know, kayaking every weekend or going picnicking with their family and friends. And that's all cool. But I'm very similar to Gary. He's a bit more intense than me because he has like 700 people on his payroll or something nuts. But for me, it's like, I really love the game. Like, I just love like the willingness, the ability to do something great with our life. So even if I had more money, the only thing I would change in my lifestyle, I might buy a green juice every morning that's delivered to my house. I might do that, but I won't like do anything crazy extravagant with the money. I think it's more about doing something great. That's one piece. Because life is short and I get to create something cool that no one else can really create. That's one piece. But the other piece is a story I'm happy to share that really motivates me every day. And the story is around a TikTok. So I was watching this TikTok the other day, Blake, and it was with Taylor Swift.
Yes. Right.
So Taylor Swift, obviously the musician. So she won an award called Woman of the Year by Billboard in 2014. And she's on that stage, Blake. She looks at the crowd and says, your future Woman of the Year is 11 years old right now. She's sitting in a choir. She's learning how to sing, and we need to take care of her. And then the TikTok flips, and then it's 7 years later, and Billie Eilish becomes the youngest inductee in Billboard's history and wins Woman of the Year at the age of like 17.
Chills.
And she gets up on the stage.
I like that.
Yeah. I'm not even done yet. Right. And she's got a big bulky jacket. She's got her big glasses. She's standing up on the stage, and I'm going to quote her a little bit. She goes, oh, yeah, what's up, guys? I don't know how I won this award. Am I even a woman yet? And she's like making fun of herself. She's like, oh my God, like Taylor had all these speeches. And then towards the last few seconds, before the TikTok kind of offs, she looks at the crowd and goes, you know, it was 2014, and I was watching Taylor Swift's speech, and I was 11 years old. And I was playing choir, and I was learning how to sing, and I had big aspirations to be a singer. So the only thing left I have to say, Billboard, is thank you for taking care of me. And then she walks off the stage. And the reason that story always touched me, Blake, is I thought about the next Elon Musk. Because when Elon was 15, nobody gave a shit about him. Because he didn't have any money. Right? He was like some kid in South Africa. Like, nobody cared about him. So I said, what about the next Elon? Like, as me and you are talking right now, we're having this conversation. The next Elon is born, is alive, is 15 right now, and might be in Cambodia, might be in Thailand, and nobody's taking care of her with her communication skills. And I realized I was the only person who could do it, so I might as well be that person.
Wow. That is such a powerful mission. And it's so weird how stuff just like, I don't know, you never know what's going to stick in your brain. But what I really like is that you follow your intuition, you know, because it is telling you something and it is drawing you in the right direction, you know, generally speaking. It seems like if you trust your internal compass about what you're supposed to do, it will take you to that next level that you're trying to get to. Yeah, that's such a crazy story to hear.
For sure, man.
So what is, I guess I would love to hear, something that basically maybe why some of the people that are starting to get into public speaking more and more frequently, like, why do you think it's so in demand right now? Because I mean, I can think of tons of reasons, but I'm sure you have discussed this directly with people. Like, what are the big things that people are getting out of it right now, you think?
For sure, Blake. There's definitely a couple of big categories, but I would say the big one is a lot of us are starting to become our own media companies, right? So and that's not just for business owners, that's also for people with corporate careers, in the sense that when you have a personal brand, when you showcase content organically on LinkedIn and different socials, people know who you are. You just get more job opportunities. So that's one piece. The second piece is that communication is essential to leadership positions. Whether you own the business or you're a VP in the business, you got to know how to communicate effectively, or else you won't be able to climb the ranks. And the third piece is, in my opinion anyways, communication, public speaking, what we're doing right now, is the quickest bridge to trust. Because at the end of the day, the most important currency in business or in sales is trust. When you see me on a YouTube channel, it's one level of trust because you listen to the videos, it's great and you're getting value. But then when you're on a podcast with me, it's a different level of trust because we're conversing, we're having a conversation. And then there's level of trust even above that, which is we meet up in person, we have lunch, right? And nothing beats that. It's really hard to replicate that. But the idea is you're always about bridging trust, and public speaking allows you to bridge trust at scale.
Wow.
Because if you're on a media or social or speaking, you could build trust with hundreds or even thousands of people at the same time, which is pretty crazy.
That is pretty crazy to think about, building trust at scale. I mean, if you took that to a pitch meeting to somebody, I don't know how they how they would be like, well, I don't know how I could say no to that. You know what I mean? Being able to empower, and build trust at scale is really powerful language. I was wondering also, whenever you are doing some of these public speaking, seminars and teaching people, what are the biggest hurdles that you typically see people trying to overcome? Because is it nature versus nurture? With some of this stuff, like what I would love to hear a little bit about that.
For sure, man. Absolutely, Blake. I would say for me, funny enough, it's motivation. A lot of people think it's fear. It's actually not fear, it's motivation. Because if you're motivated to do something, you'll push through the fear and you'll do it. Because I had a lot of fear when I started the YouTube channel. And so why did I overcome it? Going back to the story we talked about earlier, I did it for the 15-year-old girl who couldn't afford me. Obviously, my clients who pay the bills are executives, but that's really why I did it. So I pushed through it. But now the more important question becomes, how do we get motivated with our communication? And the answer, oddly enough, is to dream about it. So what does that mean? We dream about our businesses, our health, our finances, our relationships. When was the last time we dreamed about our communication skills? And the answer is never. None of us ever do it. So what's the question to fix this? The question is so simple. How would your life change if you're an exceptional communicator? Really reflect on that question, because communication is so much more, Blake, than just getting a promotion at work. It's the way you talk to your families. It's the way that you order food at a restaurant. It's the way that you meet strangers when you travel. It's every moment of your life. And once you realize communication is about leading a more fulfilling life, then you'll be on the right track to mastering communication, because you'll find out why it's important to you.
I really love that. It seems like you're just truly, because I get this way too, truly obsessed with what you're passionate about, because I'm like, you've really considered every option. How do you get to a point where you're like, keep peeling back the onion and stay curious with this kind of stuff?
That's because of smart people like you, Blake, who ask me good questions. So that's a technique I actually teach. Let's turn it into a lesson for people. I call it question drills that I teach executives that people can just literally do at home. So the principle is, you're right, Blake. Most of us are reactive to the questions we get asked in our life, whether it's from our family, on a podcast. We just get, like, I'll give an example. It's super funny. When I started podcasting, somebody asked me a brilliant question. where does the fear of communication come from? And I was like, I don't know, Los Angeles, San Diego, you tell me, man. Like,
yeah.
It's like Denmark. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I started, I didn't know the answer, but obviously now I do. But I think the key is every day for 5 minutes, all you have to do, guess one question that you think the world will ask you about your expertise, your business, your offer, what you're selling people, and write out the answer to that question. But if you do that once a day for a year, you'll have answered 365 questions about your business. Except I've done that, I mean, a ridiculous amount of times when I started the business. Because obviously I didn't know the answer to a lot of questions because I was the youngest person in the industry at the time anyways. So I just had my friends just rip me apart. They asked me every question about communication until I had an answer for everything.
That's really, really a great exercise that I think a lot of people would benefit from doing because, you know, also the thing is, I'm sure you have kind of your first initial ones that you can think of right off the top, but bringing in other people is so crucial, I think, because they probably think the ones where you're like, shit, man, I don't know exactly. Let me chew on that for a second. Do you have a pretty big support group that kind of helped you get to where you're at right now?
To absolutely, Blake. And by the way, like I consider everyone who even takes a remote interest in what I do as my support group. Like you're one of them. And the reason is because there's always something, whether it's in a super small way or in a big way, there's always something I can learn. Like the biggest thing I got from you today was how you compared my curiosity to an onion. I never thought of it that way. How like you're like peeling back and most people just kind of stop at one layer. I thought that was super fascinating. But yeah, I got a village supporting me. I mean, I'm happy to list out a couple of things. My logo was not made by me. I had 20 subscribers. I was eating a burger with my French friend Matthew in English. And we were eating and he was like, literally, dude, you need a logo. And I literally looked at him. We were like eating burgers. Yeah. I just said, dude, I got 20 subscribers. What's a logo? Like who needs that? And he just made me one. MasterTalk, the name, obviously it's trademarked in my name, but my friend came up with the name. He said, I think you should call it MasterTalk. And I realized it wasn't trademarked. And the guy who does all my video production is my best friend. Right? That's why he doesn't charge me a lot of money. So, and obviously I have my village of university people I used to go to school with who did these competitions with me. So yeah, I got a village behind me for sure.
That's so crucial, I found. I also think that having the right mindset about how you view the world allows you to feel that support sometimes. And I guess what I mean by that a little more specifically is I had a guest on, a few weeks ago, and she told me that her natural desire to help and, you know, push your comfort zone whenever, you know, forming relationships with people is because she almost has lenses on that allow her to be able to see potential opportunities in anything that she does. Not being advantageous, but knowing that all of this stuff stacks up, you know, and it lends itself to getting you to a better place than you were at before. And, you know, I think that's pretty poignant to what you're talking about too. And that you're like, hey, I'm working with my best friend. I consider everybody that I work with a supporter, and it's just so, I feel it's so essential, you know?
Oh yeah, like, you know, the whole Steve Jobs mentality of be an asshole to everyone around you. Yeah, that might work for Steve, but I think in most scenarios, especially in the business that I'm in media, and I would argue the business that you're in, because you're technically in media as well. Yeah, you just need to be the most generous person in the room, I've always found. Obviously, there's limits to generosity. You don't want to be taken advantage of, but I think the biggest part is you always want to assume good intent and always do good by people if you're able to, you know? Like Gary's a good example of this. Like when he started his brand, I'm sure he would say yes to every podcast. Of course. But then at some point it's just too much. He just wouldn't be able to live. Right? So I think it's all about balancing that. But the principle's the same. If you're just a good, generous person, you'll get the retention you need. I haven't had a single person quit on me since I started MasterTalk. Not a single person. Right? From my 3 original people, they're all still with me and they all still help me. So yeah, if you're a good person, it just works out.
So what's the favorite thing that you get out of, you know, what you do right now? Or what's your favorite thing that you do currently?
I would say, I mean, definitely my favorite part of my life in general is definitely coaching clients, just seeing the transformation live in person. But because just seeing them go from A to Z is super fun. But I would say that the thing that excites me the most is uniqueness of purpose. Like, I've really found a purpose for myself that I don't think any human being on the planet has right now, which is like the next Elon is like a 7-year-old girl, and I'm the one who's going to, like, it's super cool. I feel like a superhero in my mother's basement in Montreal. So there you go. I guess that's
no, that's I think that's really, really I was actually thinking about this the other day, because I was like, man, whenever I feel a sense of purpose in my life and like a new goal that I'm determined to go after, it's almost like, it almost is superhuman in that I feel like you're injected with almost infinite energy, and it's like, I'm going to bulldoze through whatever, not in a harmful way, but I'm just going to keep pushing, you know, I have obstacles. I'm going to keep going no matter what. I think it is like kind of like having a superpower in a way. And what, in closing out here, I always like to ask the same question at the end. What would you tell anybody else that is trying to do something along the lines that you do, if you did have any advice to share?
For sure, man. For sure. This is great, by the way. Thanks for having me, Blake. Super fun. I would say, this is kind of my closing remark. First of all, I would say congratulations to anyone who's listened to 52 minutes of the podcast. You're clearly someone who's committed, right, to getting to the next level. So here's the advice that I usually share at the end for people who make it this far. And the advice is simply this: be insane or be the same. If you want to be like everyone else, that's totally fine. But if you want to do something great with your life, you need to realize that the people who do crazy things, the people who do exceptional things, are often crazy people. Don't you find it odd, Blake, that I started a YouTube channel at the age of 22 in my mother's basement with no money, not on pranks, not on skits, not on a rapping career like most kids do, but on executive communication tips? And then I went to coach these CEOs. For some reason, they started paying me money. Yet, I still live in my mom's basement. By the way, all my clients know this. It's not like a secret, right? I live in my mom's basement. I karaoke in 8 different languages. I'm in the 0.5, not in the 5%. I'm in the 0.5% of top listeners on Spotify for Justin Bieber, and I go clubbing with my family. How does any of this make any sense at all, Blake? And that is the point. When every decision in your life makes sense to the only person that it should, which is you, you're probably making the right decisions. So be insane or be the same would be my closing remark.
That is such good advice. Everybody who made it to the end here, I mean, be insane or be the same. Remember that, you know, I think you might, I have a feeling that you're going to get some, some cult followers here, and I'll send you, if anybody sends me any tattoos that they get that quote on them somewhere.
Let's hope not.
I'll keep you posted. No, but hey, it has been so cool getting to talk to you. You pumped me up, man. I'm excited to see everything that you're going to be doing in the future. Can you tell the audience a little bit more about anything that you've got on the horizon, or any place that they can check you out? Absolutely, Blake. Happy to do that, man. So awesome. 2 ways to keep in touch. The first one is MasterTalk, the YouTube channel. Just type MasterTalk in one word. You'll have access to hundreds of free videos on how to speak. And then the second way to keep in touch is a free training I do on Zoom that's live and interactive on comms. So I'm the one who's facilitating it. It's free, it's interactive, it's fun. And if you want to register for that, go to rockstarcommunicator.com. Beautiful. Brenden, thank you again for your time. It's been a pleasure. Likewise, man. Pleasure was mine. Everybody, this is the Gem Series. Until next time, have a beautiful day.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Gem Series, the podcast for anybody dedicated to investing in themselves. If you'd like to see the resources mentioned in this episode, learn more about what we are up to at Rocket Level, or come over and join our team, just click on the links below. Until next time, this is Blake Chapman, and remember to be awesome and do awesome things.